Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we are the co-authors of The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap with our colleague, Stephen Slate.
We want to tell you quick about our solution to addiction coaching packages. They've become very popular. We've had really great success with them. They include the solution to addiction workshops, and we have one for substance use specifically, and then we have one for behavioral issues, specifically PMO and sex addiction. And they also include 3 90-minute coaching sessions with either Mark or myself, and 3 months of the online program, and all of our books. The Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction book is now available with our Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop only. And look, at the coaching package is a tremendous value. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to thefreedommodel.org. And at the top of the page, you can choose whichever one you're looking for.
That's right. It's the most effective solution to any addiction in the world.
It is.
Okay. So what are we talking about today, Michelle?
Well, I want to know how many people live their lives based on shoulds.
Oh, that's right. Michelle texted me last night, and I got the text this morning about this topic, and I thought, this is a good one.
Because this is not about substance use per se, really. Right. But it occurred to me, and I'm learning, the older you get, the more you realize you have to learn.
Yeah,
in life.
Yeah,
it's a really an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me this morning early, because I got up early and I was doing things, and I thought, are these things that I should be doing or that I want to do?
This is such an incredibly powerful nuance. I had a whole 2 full coaching sessions with 2 different people on this very topic. So when I got the text this morning, I was like, did you read my mind? People say to me when I'm coaching them, I'll say, put your guilt and shame on a shelf. And are you doing this because of shoulds, have tos? Do you judge things by bad and good? And there's all these weird parameters that we put around our decisions.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, and I know the reason, or the multiple reasons, we are afraid to say, I'm doing something because I want to do it.
Right.
We are taught that we should be, or that there's obligations, or we're doing the honorable thing, or we're doing the right thing. And the actual motive of want or desire that the person personally has gets shoved under the rug. And it's a weird phenomenon, because we'll do just about anything to avoid saying, I want to shoot heroin, or I want the new car, or I want whatever it is, this relationship to change, or whatever.
I'm going to make a bold statement here, a very bold statement about mental health in general. I believe that clinical depression happens to people, so to speak. I don't think it just happens, but it feels like it does when people have it.
Yeah. Occurs
because of shoulds. And let me explain. So there's this woman that I follow who I think is incredibly talented. I follow her on Instagram, and I think she's incredibly talented. She's a content creator and a songwriter and she's funny. She tells funny stories. But she also talks about struggling with depression and anxiety and I find it sad. I find it a little off-putting at times, but I also find it incredibly sad. Because I'm thinking for me, like when I envision when I was most depressed in my life, the last thing I would have been doing was creating content online, just saying. So there's a little bit to me of insincerity there. But when I see her, I think, I don't think it's insincere. Like she posted content. I don't know if it was recent content, but it was something I saw last night where she was like, it's been several days since I've showered and I know I should go take a shower. And that's what made me think of this. I know I should shower. I just can't seem to bring myself to shower.
Okay. So if we back up in that situation, so the end result of decisions in this scenario is not taking a shower and the shoulds, right?
Right.
But if we step back, how and why did she get depressed? And then the shoulds come into place. So if we back up a bit, there's benefits to remaining unshowered.
For sure.
So when you start to look at something with the freedom model tool of looking at benefits and the positive drive, people say, well, being depressed isn't a positive drive. Well, there are benefits. There are benefits to inaction, indecision, and depression. Depression is a result of inaction, indecision, and feelings and interpretations of futility. So this isn't a one-dimensional thing. People don't realize that they become dedicated to a certain way of thinking.
That's right.
So she's dedicated to a certain way of thinking that ends up with her unshowered. And so then there's embarrassment and the shoulds start popping up.
Well, because you feel judged, because you're judging yourself.
Yes.
Because you're projecting, because if you saw somebody else that was unshowered, you'd probably be judging them. So you're projecting. But I'm even going to go back further. Anytime I think, and I think this is most people, I should do this. Not just I should do this, but I should want to do this.
Yeah.
If you're thinking I should, that means you don't want to.
That's it.
And so, but nobody stops to ask the question, why don't I want to?
Right.
Why would I rather, and then making the comparison, why would I rather stay here sitting on the couch I'm watching Netflix than going to take a shower? Why would I rather do that?
So I had a coaching session yesterday where my student asked me, first of all, the student has made massive progress in their life. And they're deeply, deeply ingrained in the self-help movement on the web. And this person's starting to see that this is not really necessary. And he said, but I did tell him, I said, you've integrated out of that and you're really making headway and you're really smart and you're gonna just excel in life. And it's very exciting. And he could see that. And so at the end of the class, he said to me, he goes, I have made all this progress. I feel like I'm right near the end of the freedom model where I can just move on with my life. He goes, but why? He goes, you had this, he was talking about me. He goes, you had this really difficult life and you excelled. And here I am learning from you. And he goes, but there's millions of people that they may be in touch with you, but they wouldn't choose to get coached by you. They would choose to stay mired in where they are. Why? What is the difference between people like me, him, and you, Mark? And because he goes, I can see now things on a macro level that I could never have imagined seeing. I see the matrix. I see all this stuff. And he goes, but what makes the difference between me and the guy that hangs out in that depressed state and holds on to it? And I said, the word why.
Yes.
So the Socratic method of questioning in our coaching model is I do a lot of questioning, and a lot of the question is why, Why? Why do you do that? Why are you thinking that? And it stops people in their tracks and they're like, I don't know. And then they get into it. And once you start asking why, and if you ask why, answer it, then ask why is that and answer it. Ask why is that and answer it. You will get to the truth of wants, your true desires, why you're doing the things you're doing. Most people don't ask why. Instead, they say, by the judgment of others and the judgments of the world, I should do this. That's the difference. Why is introspective, internal, figuring out problem solving, and shoulds and have tos are the judgments of others that we take on and just blindly follow.
You know, I just wrote this down because here's a fundamental problem with the mental health system as a whole on the macro level, and even some life coaching people. Okay. And he was watching during breakfast yesterday morning, this I think he's a fitness coach guy.
He's the alpha male warrior.
Right. And
what a bunch of bullshit.
So here's the thing. Even these people don't get it. Yeah. They think that they got to be disciplined, which is disciplined is shoulds.
Yes.
That's just another way of saying I should be doing this. So I've got to make myself do this. If I make myself do this, I'm disciplined. The reason people don't ask why, or they come to the wrong conclusion when asking why, is because the whole mental health system is based on the lie, the misinformation that we are biologically driven. So there's no reason to ask why. Well, your brain chemistry.
That's right.
That becomes the answer. Your brain chemistry. And then there's this weird dance that you have to do. Because to change your brain chemistry, how do you do that?
Right. You take pills.
Well, and they tell you now, and if you can go to a mental health professional, a psychiatrist or psychologist, it's not all of them. I don't want to paint such broad a brush, but it's most. Okay. And they'll tell you, well, your medication will work better if you exercise daily, if you leave your house and go run errands, if you, what are all these things? All these things. You won't need medication if you're doing those things. It's the same argument with the magic that's supposed to happen when you go to an AA meeting, right? It's like, well, you can come to meetings, but you have to choose not to drink.
Yeah, so just stay home and don't drink, right? The meeting is an active placebo. So there's all these external shoulds. Yes. And directives and protocols, and all of them are outside of you. When the reality is just choosing to do the protocol is internal decision-making.
But to choose to do it requires, and this is where it gets so sticky, okay? Requires you to set the should aside.
That's right.
Okay. And not think, well, for my mental health, I should get up and go for a walk. For my mental health, I should do that. Don't say that to yourself. If you're saying that to yourself, then you don't want to go for a walk.
Yeah. Instead, replace it with, do I want to go for a walk?
Do I want to go for a walk right now?
Now, if you don't want to go for a walk, then the alpha warrior will say, you need to be disciplined to go on the walk.
Get off your ass.
See, that's the judgment of others imposing itself upon what you should be.
Your own mind. You're in your own mind beating yourself up.
Yeah, you're taking on the directive of a code that is somebody else's code that doesn't fit your circumstances. I want you to replay that if you have to hear what I just said, because it's really important. The whole self-help movement is sort of a sham because it's predicated on that a person that doesn't even know you has a standard recipe that will apply to your personal mind. Yeah. Your personal mind is driven by a unique autonomous experience of you. Only you know whether you want to take a shower in the morning or not. And it's all based on wants and analysis that you've determined already. So you can change your mind. Think about that term. I'm going to change my mind, right? Therefore, you change your behaviors if you want to. If you don't, and you do it on shoulds, it'll be incredibly temporary. You'll do the shoulds reluctantly. And then you'll feel like a failure. Then you'll go back to your self-help coach and you say, I failed. Well, you need discipline, you know, and you should want this. Here's a protocol that you can do. And the reality is that protocol may have nothing to do with anything of what your problem is. Maybe you don't want to take a shower because you just don't give a shit about showering. They're dirty people.
Well, and it's
right?
not just that.
Or you don't take a shower because you're really, really, really dedicated to being lazy. Sometimes there's benefits. So we explored in the coaching session with this fella, he likes sitting in bed. And I said, there's benefits to that. So when you sit in bed, you want to sit in bed. So let's not act like he goes, but my warrior coach says that I need to be disciplined and get up at 4 and get on the treadmill. And I go, really? He knows you? Like, did you have a coaching session? Well, no, it's a video. And I go, well, it's bullshit. You know, we need to analyze why you like being in bed.
I love being in bed at 4 a.m.
So do I.
Unfortunately, a lot of times I'm not. but look, it's not just, you know, I think sometimes what happens is we live our lives on all these shoulds, never stopping to ask what we want. And I think that happens for a ton of people. I think as you get older, I think it starts probably sometime around 10, 12 years old. You start to go through puberty, you have all these shoulds. Your parents have taught you shoulds. And you should want to go to church, or you should go to church every Sunday, and you should clean your room and make your bed, and you should. So that's when that starts, all of these shoulds. And if you're like me and you're trying to be the good girl, which I did for a while, and I did all these shoulds, never stopping to ask why. Why should I do this? Why should I even want to do this? So I never stopped to ask why. And then I became very rebellious against all of it. And so my rebelliousness, I had lived this double life of, I'm doing all these shoulds that I don't understand and never stop to ask why. And I mean, right down to brushing my freaking teeth. Okay. And then and I would do them. And then on the other side, I'm doing all this stuff that I shouldn't want to do. So it wasn't even stuff that I wanted to do. I never got in touch with what I wanted. It was, I should do this stuff and I shouldn't do this stuff. Right? There was never a want. And so you just go through life. And anytime I would do the littlest bit that I wanted to do, I would feel guilty for it.
Oh yeah.
I'd feel shameful for it. I would feel like I don't deserve this because I am secretly so, I'd feel like a slave.
Yeah.
I'd feel like a slave to who? To what? To bullshit is what it is. So when you are somebody that struggles with depression, and I personally think that's because you're living this life based on shoulds and you've never taken the time to understand what you want.
So let me jump in, because that's so crucial, because I want to back up to what I was saying earlier. So you may think that I'm being dismissive when I talk about depression and being beholden or wanting laziness or wanting the benefits of depression. There are benefits to remaining static, the status quo. But what I really want to say to qualify that, so you don't think I'm being a dick about that, because I've been severely depressed to the point of suicide. So I understand it. I just want people to know that I'm not being dismissive of their utter pain. Okay. You may not know what options exist because you're so wrapped up in the shoulds that it never occurred to you to ask what you want.
Yeah. To even take the time to figure that out.
Yeah. So in the absence of the proper analysis of your life, and in the absence of knowing that there's all kinds of other options available to you, you do get sucked into a very small world that you may have created, but may have been created for you by your parents and all these different factors, right? Where you feel like you're a victim of all of it. And then the cocoon of inactivity becomes the only way you avert risk. The risk of vulnerability, the risk of the challenges of life, of failure, all these kinds of fears. So I just want to be very, very clear that I'm not being dismissive of your pain, and that there can be a tremendous amount of confusion. There can be a tremendous lack of knowing there's other options that are available. There may be a lack of analysis. And hopefully this podcast makes you understand that you can start to ask why and what do I want? And that will free you slowly over time and sometimes very quickly out of a very depressed state.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to qualify all of that without sounding dismissive earlier.
And it's so I'm going to now kind of shift to like everyday life stuff. Okay. Because when people measure like depression or whatever, they'll kind of look at everyday life things that people don't do. Right. And so if you live in, and you don't clean your clothes and you don't do your dishes and things pile up around you, there can be all this judgment from the outside and internally that, yeah, it's because I'm depressed or because I'm anxious or whatever. And what it really is the shoulds, right? So I should. So you look at the dishes piling up. I should do the dishes. I should do the dishes. I should do the dishes. I'm talking from experience. Okay. And you just can't bring yourself to do the dishes. And so it feels like there's something wrong with you. When the only thing that's wrong, because there really isn't anything wrong.
This is it.
Is that I don't see value in getting up to do the dishes right now. I see more value in sitting here watching Netflix than I do in getting up to do the dishes. And so for the longest time, I hated the dishes and I would force myself in there because the truth was I did want a clean kitchen, right? I wanted a clean kitchen. And so it'd be a fight. I'd fight myself to go in and do the dishes. Now, that's just crazy.
But
right? I would feel like I was crazy.
Yeah. But what you're describing is I always use this in my coaching. Yeah, deliberation. So the want of watching
the results
of wanting Netflix, for instance, might be right here. And then eventually as the dishes pile up and pile up and pile up, now it just tips the scale a little bit. Now that does make you feel a little crazy because they're so close. Now, if you loved clean dishes and it was something that was really important to you, it'd be way up here and Netflix would be down here. You wouldn't even think about Netflix.
No,
because the want is great.
Do you know how I changed it? Just that way. I changed it just that way. I love clean dishes. I love a clean kitchen. Like I love a clean kitchen. And nearly every single night now, I would much rather be in cleaning my kitchen than sitting watching television.
Yeah.
Because I know I will relax better and feel happier sitting in my living room, relaxing when my kitchen's clean. But I didn't, so there's no discipline involved in it.
That's right.
Now, am I disciplined and do whatever? No. For the most part, I want to do it and I do it every night because I also like getting up to a clean kitchen in the morning. And so when I weigh all these things, what happened was I stopped saying I should do this.
That's right.
I stopped it.
We were talking in the coaching session about also discipline. I said, get rid of the word discipline and say want or don't want.
Yes.
You don't need discipline for things that you want to do.
That's right.
So instead of saying discipline, what you say is, let's say that you are disciplined in getting up to get on the treadmill at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning, and you're disciplined in doing that. That's not discipline.
No,
that's a want. That is,
you see value,
and it may be difficult. This is where discipline,
sometimes
the nuance exists. When you barely want to get up every single morning to get on that thing and it's hard to do, all that means is not discipline. It just means that sleep and staying in bed and the experience on the treadmill are very closely aligned in the want scale.
Yeah.
That's all that means.
Yes,
you want
that's
to,
a great point.
You want to slightly get on the treadmill more, slightly. The want is slightly more than staying in bed. Now, this is a really important nuance. So these types of situations we categorize as discipline. Now, fine, if that's what you want to do, but I would rather say, I want to get up and go on the treadmill today. Now, if you are heavily involved in the self-help movement, there's all kinds of judgment that the gurus will say about protocols and lifestyles, and they will design it around shoulds. They will design it around what is healthy, what is toxic, what is, and all these judgments are made. Let's say that you live in a fucking shitty, gross house, right? You just let
everything go.
You let everything go. I grew up around some people that lived that way, and I realized they were good people. That they just had a
They were unapologetic about it.
They were unapologetic, and that's where I want to go with this. Once you embrace your want, no matter what the judgment of others says about it, this is really important. When you can finally let go of the self-help movement, finally let go of the judgments of your parents ringing in your ears, even though you're 35 or 40 or 50, all the judgments of the world, of TikTok telling you how to live, how social media feeds you, when you eliminate all that, and I suggest you do if you are living by shoulds, then what you do, and you've eliminated all that, you say, do I really like living in a beat up, old, shitty, dirty house? And if I do, let me embrace it, because this is my house. Yes. This is how I live.
Yes.
And I value sitting in my grubby, easy chair with newspapers stacked up all around me. And you know what? I like it. I like it. And own it. That's the point, because once you own it without apology, without judgment, then you can say, do I really like it? For you.
Right.
For you.
Only.
Yeah. And then all the other factors might play in later. But if you ratchet back with every decision and you get rid of shoulds and guilt and what you should be doing, I'm telling you, your life, the analysis tools become really effective, because now you own it. You can look at it clearly. You don't have guilt in the way. You don't have shame. You don't have the shoulds shrouding it. You don't have all that shit is off here to the side, and you go, this is my baby. Yeah. Do I still need heroin? Do I really still need this bad marriage? Do I still really want my house to be a mess? You may say no. You may say yes. But you get a clean analysis based on want.
Yeah. Yes. And no judgment. Because when he was talking, I thought there's a lot, even if you get a life coach, there's a lot of that judgment, that good versus bad. Oh, yeah. Getting up at 4 a.m. is good. Staying in bed is bad.
Yeah, it's unhealthy.
No, that's not true at all, by the way. That is very incredibly subjective. And I was one of those people for a long time that I was like, I must get up at 4:30 and I must work out every morning. And it was a grind every time I did it.
Because you're framing it as it's almost out of your control. You're framing it as the standard of somebody else's judgments.
Exactly.
And then the other thing is, if we're really hard on ourselves, the question is, why are we hard on ourselves? Well, it's usually because we are living by the standards of somebody that says you need to live this way.
Yeah.
And it's why when you leave your hometown and you don't go back for a while, you change so rapidly, and you usually grow as a person. If you stay in the same place where all the reminders of your shoulds exist, you don't grow past them. And I always tell people, small town, if you stay in small town America, it's the land where dreams die. Now, it's not entirely true. I think there's plenty of people that live in small towns, but it was true for me. Leaving that place was absolutely paramount, because the shoulds were so powerful in my life, and the judgment of others and all the fuck ups that I had made, I was living and reliving them, because that's what I thought I was. Yeah. I wasn't able to really question any of this stuff and see objectively what I wanted. And then when I left, I kind of looked out there at the world and I said, I think I want that. I'm going to try. I'm going to want that, because there was nobody around. And that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
It really was.
So the reason I wanted to talk about this today, it was kind of an extension of last week's episode, and I had really been thinking about it the entire week. And I just want people to understand that what you want matters. I mean, it matters more than anything else. And I think that there are far too many people, and if you're listening to this podcast, you may be one of them, who are still living life based on what they should, not just what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing, but what they should be thinking, what they should believe, what they
How they should feel.
how they should feel about any particular thing. I mean, I can remember, like, I am somebody that would get so concerned about the opinion of others that I wasn't even sure how to behave at a funeral.
Yeah.
You
God,
know,
yeah.
like,
Mhm.
should I be crying? Shouldn't I be crying? Was I close enough to this person to cry? I mean, really? Like, to me, that is a surefire way to be depressed, to be insecure. And I envy people. For a long time, I would envy people, and kind of Mark was one of them for a while, who just were unapologetic about about what they want in their lives and what they want to do and what they believe and what they say. And in this culture right now, I think it's extreme.
Oh,
The
yeah.
pressures to not say what you want, not do what you want, not think the way you want, not feel the way you want, the pressures to conform to others is extreme. I mean, you can put up any video about anything. You can put up a video talking about the sky being blue on a particular day, and you'll get, a half a dozen people that'll go on there and say, well, actually, it's blah, 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 blah. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I thought it was a pretty day. I don't care what you think, whether it's a pretty day or not. So really, if you are somebody that is living your life based on shoulds, first of all, you can't please everybody. The only person you can ever please is yourself. So why not work on that?
Yeah. So in the freedom model that we identify three human attributes of how you think. One is autonomy, and that's really what we're talking about. When you embrace that you are an individual with your own thoughts, likes, and dislikes, and that you get to experience life exactly the way you want
That's
to,
right.
if you allow yourself to. But if you live by shoulds, you're not allowing yourself, you're not expressing your autonomy. What you're doing is you're expressing the autonomy of somebody else,
Somebody out there
who doesn't even know what's going on in your autonomous mind, your free will, your expressions of your positive drive. So once all of the freedom model gets sucked down into those three things, because the human being is a self-contained godlike thing. You're a miracle. You have a miracle of your mind. So once you understand that, I'm telling you, the world becomes your oyster. You're like, oh, I don't have to feel guilty anymore because I like my messy house. I don't have to feel guilty for wanting the Corvette with the top of the line motor. I don't have to feel guilty anymore for going to church when my spouse thinks it's ridiculous. I don't have to feel guilty or shameful about sticking a needle in my arm and doing heroin. I get to embrace it and then ask myself whether I want to keep doing it. Because that's a personal decision that's personal to me based on my positive drive. That's my expression of my positive drive. I get to drink the fifth of vodka, or I get to PMO, or I get to do these things. Well, once you embrace that you are this autonomous person based on wants and you embrace it, then you can ask the value and challenge it personally and
That's
say,
right.
but you can't look at the thing filled with guilt, filled with shoulds. All of that is a distraction. You have to eliminate that, embrace the thing that you're questioning, and then really question it.
That's right.
But you have to embrace it first and say, I like this.
I like this.
I've chosen this.
Yeah.
There is no other force here. There is no other thing present. Now, here's what's interesting. When you do this with a lot of shoulds, like Michelle talks about, she lived her life by shoulds and guilt and all of that. When you finally embrace things and if you can just take the guilt and even set slightly aside, all of a sudden you go, I don't think I give two shits about this.
Or you find out, I do want to do my dishes.
Right.
I do want to go to church.
Right.
I do want to take care of my father, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I spent years on Sundays, making dinner, bringing it to my father's house for these big family dinners that he wanted, right? That he wanted. And ironically, he wanted them because my grandmother, my mother's mother, used to do that every Sunday. We would go there for dinner. And as kids, it was the highlight of my week, right? Apparently, it was the highlight of his too, because he wanted to create it. Well, I spent years on Sundays doing it, feeling obligated and pissed off and resentful doing it. And then I think it was Mark that said, you don't have to do that anymore. Why do you keep doing that if it's making you miserable? I'm like, well, I have to do it. And it's ridiculous, because when I took a step back and realized I don't have to do this anymore, I wanted to do it. Like I was like, I was doing it ultimately because I wanted to, or I wouldn't have done it, right? Because we do these things. So there was this convoluted thing in my mind. So instead of just taking a step back, erasing the should,
Getting rid of obligation,
yep, and thinking, why am I doing this? Do I really want to do this? Oh, actually, I do. Why do I want to do this? And then I figured out, because it was a highlight of my week when I was a child, and I did love it. And
what a wonderful, so what you're saying is, by getting rid of obligation, you took this awful wrapper off of a gem.
Yes.
And so the awful wrapper. Now, what if it wasn't a gem? What if
I realized I didn't want to do it anymore? I wouldn't have done it.
Right. Then you can eliminate that whole thing
and not feel guilty about it.
And not feel guilty. Isn't that wild? That, by the way, folks, is why we call it the freedom
model, because you figure that out. Now, the truth of the matter is, I did eventually stop doing it. And I thought, no, you know what I want to do? I want to have it at my house. I don't want to get all this together and bring it someplace else. People can come to me.
That's right.
That's right. And so
you modified the oyster
to be what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because if I'm the one doing it, I get to do what I want. And so if you are living your life this way, I love the wrapper. Yeah. Take the wrapper of the shoulds and the obligation and the guilt and then whatever it is, take it off of it and look at it and go, why am I doing this?
Do I like this?
I like this? How much do I like it? What are the benefits? And it can be anything.
And let me challenge whether the benefits are real, whether maybe I've grown out of this activity. Maybe it means nothing to me. Yeah. So it facilitates such massive personal growth. Now, I got to tell you, sometimes the shoulds, the guilt, the wrapper is so ironclad because you've been abused by people since you were a child and you were told how you should be and all of that. That's a case where you might need coaching to unravel this, because with the Socratic method, we can ask the right questions and you will self-discover through the questions of why and how we do that. And you'll get to the truth. And
it's pretty refreshing to be with somebody that isn't judging you.
Yeah. That's
that there's no shoulds involved.
That's right.
We're open books, clean slates, right? Like we just are like, well, yeah, why? No judgment. Why do you like it?
And just to put that in perspective, I mean, when you're dealing, because we're experts in, for instance, sex addiction and PMO addiction, and obviously substance use forever. When you're dealing with fetishes that are super embarrassing to most people, we don't judge it because we've heard it thousands and tens of thousands of times in all different kinds of wild little ways. So there isn't anything that you might be embarrassed about and feel guilty about, and it's shrouded in shoulds and guilt and pain, that we won't look at and go, okay, let's openly discuss this. And it's so relieving. And I was lucky enough, her father was very good with me. I told him the entire truth the first night I met him. I laid it all out on the line. I took a huge risk emotionally for me because I was at the end of my life. I had a suicide attempt the previous day. And so I had nothing to lose. And He just listened. So that's what we'll do for you. We'll pass that on in our coaching model. That's how we do things. We're not going to tell you, we're not going to be like these self-help guru bullshit artists saying, that's unhealthy. That's toxic. That person's a narcissist. We're not going to do all of that.
No.
It's such a fucking waste of time, and it drives me crazy.
You know what it is? It's the difference between, I look at human beings. I look at the inherent beauty of being human. Like with all of it's fascinating to me.
That is me
It's
too.
like there's a difference between being openly curious and being openly judgmental, right?
Yeah.
Or even covertly judgmental. It's just a curiosity about what it is to be human. Like seeing into somebody's mind to me is always fascinating.
And it's a super honor, right? To be able
is.
To be able to be the person who listens to somebody's horror story and utter embarrassment, and they've been judged with shoulds and guilt and intolerance for so long, and they're being fed on social media. They call it a feed. Think about it. They're feeding you bullshit. It's it is really disgusting. So and to have somebody come and trust you with their innermost secrets and say, hey,
this is who I am.
And then me to say, tell me about that. Tell me how exciting that is for you. Tell me why let's embrace it. Let's talk about it and embrace it. And it can be some seedy shit, right? By most people's standards. But to me, it's just an expression of your positive drive. I don't have any emotional attachment to your fetishes.
Right.
So I'm interested in them, and then we unravel them, and then we see the value of them, then we deconstruct them, and then we move on from them. That is the coaching process. And when we do that, people move on, or they embrace them without guilt.
That's it. I think we covered it today.
Yeah.
Look if you like our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen or watch. We welcome your comments on our YouTube channel on this if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're interested in coaching, you can go to thefreedommodel.org and get more information about our coaching, or you can call us at 1-888-424-2626. Share this podcast with your friends. Let them know that we're here.
Yeah. And every time you give a 5-star rating and a positive review, it helps the algorithm reach more people, because ultimately that's all we care about, is spreading the message of non-judgment and our method.
And hope that, you're not biologically driven. You have an amazing mind that is quite powerful, actually.
Yeah. And is a miracle.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Take care.